Does this sound all right? Where are
Yeah,
your
man.
where are your mics?
Mine's right next to my balls.
That's why it sounds all scratchy.
To be fair, I'd rather listen to your nuts.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Not Another Whiskey Podcast, our first episode of 2023. Happy New Year. And I hope everyone and all of their whiskey dreams come true this year. And who knows what's going to happen? Who knows? My name is Daz Haldane, your co-host for this episode, guided as always by my very dear friend, Mr. Mitch Beshard. And you might have picked up there's another voice in the room.
Yeah, we'll get onto that in just a second, though. Happy New Year to all our listeners. How's your Christmas and New Year, Daz?
Mine was class. Really good. We had a fake Christmas on the 22nd, which was really good. It was kicked off with, I'm actually drinking it just now, a wee Glenturret 10, smoky one, and some oysters. And then we just had a few drinks throughout the day. It was class. And then actually on Christmas Day itself, I just got a takeaway. It was really good.
Nice, dude. Nice.
What about you, man? What was happening?
That was all good. Just did it up in Speyside. So I actually moved up to Speyside 4 days before Christmas. I don't recommend to anyone moving house 4 days before Christmas. It sucks ass big time. But apart from that, it was fantastic. So all moved into Speyside now, which is kind of cool.
You had a white
here.
Christmas then?
Yeah, it was a little bit. It was like Boxing Day. I think we got some snow. So it was like a day late. But aside from that, it was fantastic. So yeah, all good, man. All good. So we're going to kick this show off. But before we do that, I want to address the elephant in the room. For those astute listeners amongst you, you would have noticed that this episode is titled Dropping a Bombshell. So we're going to do that later in the show. We've got some massive news about the podcast moving into 2023. So keep listening for what's going to happen. But before we get into that, as Daz alluded to, we've got a special guest who's joining us today, Mr. Nicholas Palaki, who is on the line all the way from the US of A. Nicholas, welcome to the show, my man.
Gentlemen, thanks very much. Great to see you both. And when you said elephant in the room, I will admit that at first I thought you were talking about you holding a little Christmas weight. So I'm glad to clarify it's about a bombshell.
You know, it was when we jumped on earlier and Nick, you said to Mitch, you're looking well. That's kind of code in Scottish, isn't it? For put on a wee bit of weight over the last wee while. You're looking healthy.
No, I genuinely meant it. I was like, oh, you look pretty good, Mitch.
I don't believe that for a second.
That's the cynical Scotsman coming out in you, Daz, versus the nice part of Nicholas being in America for so long, where you compliment people and you don't fucking take the piss out of them.
Aye.
There's nothing like a good backhanded compliment, is there? Come on.
My mother's written a book about them, by the way, if anybody wants to read it.
Right, anyway, so for those who are listening and may have had the unfortunate pleasure of meeting Nicholas, I'll give you a little recap. So this fine fella and I met back in 2010, I think it was, Nick, when we both started working together for William Grant & Sons. We actually moved out to LA at the same time when you took on the Balvenie ambassador role, as I started with Glenfiddich, which was kind of fun times. I remember literally we went to California in the middle of summer, moved to, you were in Santa Monica, I was down in Newport Beach, and we kind of turned around to our bosses and went, so what do you want us to do during the summer months? And I think at that point in time, there was no real plan for like whiskey ambassadors in California. So they're like, well, basically, why don't you just go around bars and buy everyone Glenfiddich and Balvenie? So that's what we proceeded to do for the entire summer, which got a little bit messy, to say the least, right? I mean, yeah. Dude, I remember like it was literally, we would be doing a bottle of whiskey a night almost going out. It was insane.
Yeah, it was, it was something else.
Yeah,
I had to bring my stunt liver when I first moved out there, so I'm glad I brought my stunt liver. That was fun.
Mate,
but actually,
you went through 5. What are you talking about?
But prior, actually, to that match, I actually met Daz first. So Daz and I predate you.
I know.
We do.
I do. In every way. Meet? I was with Bacardi, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, I was working in bars, and Nick was running events, and these B parties, wasn't it? It was the sort of music DJ, sort of Bacardi nights.
So if you want to talk about insane, at least Mitch, when you and I went out, we actually drank alcohol. When you went to a Bacardi party, there wasn't much Bacardi being drank, funnily enough.
There was lots of bottles of water.
There was lots of bottles of water being drank.
Oh,
And
I thought you guys were going to say you were drinking Bacardi breezes all the time. That would even
no,
work.
it was insane. It would be a lot of kind of underground nightclub heavy DJ sets, and I mean it was amazing. Like some of the stuff we got to do was fantastic right across the world. But we put on DJ sets and have like Shaka Khan come and sing vocals over the top of it, and really kind of famous kind of musicians would come and play along. And then they put Daz behind the bar, and all hell would break loose.
It was actually Stu Bale, and he roped me into it. He was like, "Tom, come and do this event and give me a hand making some drinks." And it was carnage. It was good though. It was good fun.
Yeah. So we read it back, and then we've all kind of like crossed paths, I think, as well from different businesses. And I ended up doing some consultancy work with White Mackay on Jura and Dalmore out in the States, and Daz was working with those guys. So we got to kind of put the band back together there.
And even just before that, remember, I just missed you at Macallan in Edrington because you were working with David Cox. And
that's right.
Those guys back then, and so I'd heard your name many times at Edrington, and all good things. Well, 95% of it was good.
I was a younger man back then. Maybe not all the decisions were the smartest, but yeah, it was fun. Actually, working at Edrington's brilliant. Macallan's such a fantastic whiskey. Actually, I loved visiting the guys and the team out at Highland Park, and I know I've heard you guys speak about going up to Orkney and seeing that yourselves. But my favourite whiskey under that umbrella was definitely Glenrothes, and still to this day. And you can tell from the wall of whiskies behind me that I'm a big Glenrothes fan, and still like to kind of drink that dram. So yeah,
it's kind of weird. We've got this like whiskey three-way thing going on here. Wait, did I just make that even weirder than it sounded?
I think you might have.
Well, you can put your clothes back on to start. That would help.
Come on, man! It's a podcast. No one can see apart from the three of us. What are you talking about? Anyway, so, well, I mean, Nicholas, let's talk about what you're doing now, right? So you've gone solo, you've got your own Japanese whiskey. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, thanks, Mitch. Yeah, we launched Shibui in November, December of 2020, which, as you can imagine, is the perfect time to launch a whiskey brand in the middle of a pandemic when you can't get out to any bars or restaurants and liquor stores don't know how to open the doors yet. So that was actually part of our strategic marketing plan to launch in the middle of a pandemic. So I think we nailed it. So, credit where credit's due.
Well done.
Well done, yeah, exactly. So we'd spent about 4.5 years going out. It's myself, two partners, Lauren and Rachel Simmons, and Brett Lugo as well, who's part of our design team and a partner in the business. And myself and Lauren had kind of gone back and forth in and out of Japan and found a handful of really exceptional distilleries. And the way that we wanted to do it was really kind of celebrate this kind of art of blending and see if we can bring the weird and the wonderful from Japan back out to the United States and the rest of the world. So we launched and in 2020, and it's been, the last 2 years have been fantastic. So we've got some blends that we do in Niigata, Japan. Actually, we were just out in October visiting the distillery in Niigata and in Okinawa. But the distillery in Niigata is something else. It's just a beautiful little property. It's a father and son team that we work with out there. And, 40% of the distillery operates on solar power, which is pretty cool. It's right in a farm at the Japanese Sea. And it's just a really beautiful, actually it really reminded me of Scotland. Funny enough, it made me homesick. It reminded me so much of Scotland when I was there. It's really odd. And then we went to Okinawa, where we've got, 3 distilleries currently that we work with, but one major distillery with Masahiro that we really kind of partner with. And the way that we do it is that we go into the existing warehouses and we've kind of drawn out the casks that we wanted to marry together and blend together and finish and do some weird and wonderful things with to create the whiskies that would become Shibui. So it really is a partnership. We've laid down 15-year stocks currently and continuing to expand that out, which is quite nice. And yeah, that's, we get to, I think the world of Japanese whiskey is slightly unique and slightly odd anyway in the way that we think about it. People often think about malt whiskey from Japan as being Japanese whiskey, which is weird because every single drop of the grain that's used to make malt whiskey in Japan predominantly still comes from Scotland, England, or other parts of Europe. Whereas when we look at Scotch whiskey, or if we look at American whiskies, it's really agricultural based. You know, the agriculture of the local farmers really shape the whiskies of the land. And in Japan, that's not so much the case. So for us, we get to do, wheat whiskies and malt whiskies in Niigata, but we also have single grain rice whiskies from Okinawa, which is the grain of Asia, and really, really pretty, great award winning whiskey, and we're really proud of it.
Nice. We should you got to sort us out with some samples, mate. What's going on?
Absolutely, That's we've got. Shipping whiskey around the world, as you know, isn't the easiest thing to do, but I'm sure we can. I'm sure we can figure out.
It might just be easier just to smuggle it over. No? Am I allowed to say that?
I think so. Actually, funny enough, I think I'll be heading back in March, so stay tuned. But for March, I'll certainly put a couple of pour downs in the carry on and make sure that you guys can get a few drams in.
Yeah, I haven't drunk huge amounts of Japanese whiskey. I mean, usually when I do, I've been to Japan quite a few times in the past, but it's normally when I'm in Speyside, actually, up Mitch's way. I go to the Highlander Inn.
Yep.
And Tatsuya-san's always got some really interesting, nice bottles open that I wouldn't normally be able to get my hands on, and it's always a real pleasure to sort of sit and go back and forward between the malts, as you say, even the grains and things like that, just to see what the differences are.
Yeah. I mean, they're what I'd say about the Japanese, the other brands that are out there are so dedicated to this art of perfection. And that's where the Japanese have really kind of come into their own. They've taken something that really inherently isn't from Japan and refined the process and looked at how they can alter and create different flavor profiles with multiple yeast strains and different distillate styles and things like that in-house. It's not as collaborative as the world of Scotch whiskey, where, we all work, in unison, we all share, buy, sell, trade barrels with each other. That does not happen in Japan. And it's odd from our standpoint, guys like ourselves who have spent a lifetime, you don't just champion Scotch, you don't just champion the Scotch whiskey brand that you work for. You're a representative of Scotland. You're a representative of the region of whatever Scotch whiskey you're talking about. And then on top of that, you're the champion and you're the brand ambassador of that particular brand. In Japan, that's not the case. They very much talk about themselves, and that's really it. And for us, one of the things that we get excited about with Shibuya is, like, there's so much more out there. Like, and that means that there's nothing but opportunity. Okay, so when you look at these big brands from Japan, which are every single drop of whiskey that they make is spectacular. Yeah. But then you've got these smaller distilleries that are making more innovation and kind of driving the kind of conversation about, yeah, that's great, but what else could we do? And even some of those big brands are doing some of that as well, which is really exciting for me to see.
So you're a Scottish guy.
Yep.
Selling Japanese whiskey in America.
Yep. Let's be very clear. I'm a Scottish guy with an Italian last name, living in New Jersey, with a business based in California, where we've got 4 distilleries in Japan selling Japanese whiskies to the Americans.
So what Scotch were you drinking over Christmas and New Year then? Did you have a couple of glasses? Or was
I did have a wee dram of Scotch whiskey, actually. So again, as I've made no... I don't try to hide that I'm a massive Glenrothes fan, but I actually had a little Glendronach 21-year-old as well. From the old, little Parliament bottling. So that's still just great juice. Great juice. So what about you guys? What were you sipping on?
I had so much, I can't even fucking remember, to be honest with you. No, I mean, it was pretty, it kind of sucked for me because literally as we moved up here, everything was in boxes and we just left everything in boxes, including all my whiskies. So I only had about 6 or 7 whiskies out. But someone did buy me a little Ben Riach 21-year-old. Was it 21, 25, sorry, which was rather nice. So I managed to dig that out of the boxes somewhere. And,
was that a peated expression or a non-peated?
No, it was a port finish.
Port finish, oh, lovely.
Yeah.
I was working on Boxing Day and I did a tasting up by Mitch, actually, up in Speyside, and it was an American chap, and he'd taken over this lovely house for his family. So I went up and did a tasting for him in the evening, and we picked sort of 5 nice whiskies, and it was brilliant. I got to taste again. It was an old Highland Park. I don't know if you remember the Magnus series with St. Magnus, Earl Magnus, and Earl Hucken. So we did the St. Magnus, which was the second release in the range, and it was lovely. It's just a cask strength 12-year-old Highland Park. Just a few casks had gone together and pulled that release out, and it was nice, man. Really lovely Highland Park, nice and honeyed. And are you on a Highland Park tonight, Mitch? Yeah,
that's weird, man. That's what I'm drinking tonight. 12-year-old. What about you boys? What are you sipping on?
Right now, I'm on the Glenturret 10 smoky one from 2021. So they've brought out a 7-year-old for the 2022 release. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that compares. But yeah, this is a nice. It's the Smoky Glen Turret. It's lovely. Really works.
Yep. I'm currently sipping on a little Shibui Grain Select, which is it's wheat actually, funnily enough. So majority wheat base, so about 95% wheat, 5% malted barley, and then matured in bourbon cask, Oloroso sherry cask, and finished in Japanese Mizunara oak. And it's brilliant, and it's reminiscent to me of like great grain whiskies that used to get in Scotland. You know, like I grew up in the Barton, you know, home of the Ballantine distillery. And you know, people often overlook, as I know we've spoken before, and you guys have chatted about in the podcast, like grain whiskies can often get overlooked in Scotland, and you know they're overshadowed by the big bold, you know, world of single malts. But grain whiskey, I'm really get excited about. I think it's got so much opportunity still, but I just love it. You know, I still
You
love to
boys were
visit.
you boys were at Grant's when Girvan was relaunched, right?
Yep.
Yeah. How was? I haven't tried a lot of that stuff. It was actually a wee bit more expensive probably than standard grain was at the time. I suspect. Oh, there we go. There's a nice. Is that a 28-year-old?
Is it a 28-year-old? Yeah. Actually,
How does Girvan go down as a grain whiskey? Because I haven't tried much of it.
I think it was great juice. I don't think the proposal was strong enough, and I don't think people at that point in time were ready for that premium grain whiskey to hit the market. A lot of people just didn't get it. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
I think what was the youngest one that came out? Was it 21?
Yeah, I think
went
so.
Up to, went up to like 30, something like that. So people are a bit like, well, firstly, what is Girvan? Because not a lot of people know about it. Secondly, wow, a grain whiskey at that price point, I don't know if I want to pay that, you know?
Where the whiskey works, we did the 29-year-old Glaswegian, which would have come from a closed Glasgow grain distillery, which we would know now as, I suppose, Port Dundas, now that it's gone. But it was delightful. And I think we were selling that for about 110 or 120 quid at the time through White Mackay. And it was brilliant. I mean, it's one of the few whiskies I've actually bought 3 or 4 bottles of. And just have gone back to. When I see it, I generally will pick one up because it's like banana bread, just lovely, you know, just really drinkable stuff. But yeah, it's true. I agree with your point about that really, like, when you get good grain, it's great whiskey, full stop, doesn't matter. Do you know what I mean? It's
correct, yeah. And that's it. I mean, I will pour a Scotch whiskey at some point during this because obviously we're Scotland focused, but I did want to pour at least a little Shibui to keep things
nice. Yeah,
off, you know.
Things shamelessly plugging.
Exactly. Exactly, Mitch. Like you're here.
Mate, we know Mitch is going to be booking a wee trip to Turkey soon, so we'll know what's been happening there. You know what I mean? He'll come back with teeth like you and hair like me.
What? Is that where you get hair extensions?
They're not extensions, mate.
Moving on from my hair, let's move this show on a little bit and talk about.
Do you want to just brush past it, Mitch?
Nice.
Oh. You don't have to brush past it. You can comb over it if you want.
Oh, come on. This is where we part ways.
Yeah, that's 2 yellow cards right there, boys. Right, let's chat about what's been going on in the whiskey world. I mean, to be honest with you, since we last recorded that Charlie episode, Daz, there's not been much happening because it's Christmas and everyone's been off, taking a well-deserved break. Yeah. However, we mentioned earlier on, we do have some big news about the podcast. So I think that's what we need to focus on with regards to the news and what's going on in the whiskey world, because it is pretty big. So Daz, I'm going to pass this over to you because this is basically all about you. So you can drop the bombshell.
I can drop the bombshell. Well, Mitch, I have to say, look, it's been an absolute pleasure hosting the podcast with you, but we will have to sadly part ways. This will be my last episode on Not Another Whiskey podcast. Something I've enjoyed very much. And actually, Mitch, if we remember back to the start of this, it was just an excuse for you and I to catch up. You wanted to do a YouTube channel. I had an idea for a podcast, and we kind of fused the two together. We've how many episodes are we on? 60?
65.
65 episodes. So it's been an absolute blast, mate. Yeah, but work is going to be quite demanding over the next little while. There's a lot going on. So, you know, for me, I'm not going to be able to do it. I'm not going to be able to commit to it as much anymore, which is a real shame. But at the same time, I'm very, very pleased to be handing it over to someone with much better chat, much better insight in the whiskey industry, And yeah, I'll it's not you, Mitch, obviously, it's someone else.
Right. But dude, I mean, it's sad news. I was gutted when you told me about this, but it's an amazing experience, an amazing role that you're going on to do. And I wish you all the best with that. I'm really excited for you to go away and do that. And it's a bummer that you just can't host the podcast because of this new role. You're going on to do something absolutely amazing, which just means you can't do this podcast, which I'm gutted about. So I'm at the point here where I don't have a co-host, and the co-founder has basically dumped me. So everyone that's listening, just to let you know, we recorded the last part of the Charlie episode back in December, and we recorded that, and everything was good. We're all happy. And then Daz basically just turned around to me and went, "Oh, and by the way, I can't do the podcast anymore." And that was it. So yeah.
It was actually something you said. It was something you said in that last podcast that just really didn't sit right with me, mate. So
is that what it was? Fair enough, man. Fair enough. Yeah. So I mean, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm kind of sitting here like, well, how's the podcast gonna go on? Actually, Nicholas, what are you doing this year? You fancy jumping in on this?
Yep. Done. Sorry, Daz. Replaced.
Mate, it's as easy as that.
It wasn't even a phone call, was it? It was just the next guest takes over.
My microphone's still warm. What's going on? You know what I
mean? Well, there you go, guys. You just heard it. So Nicholas Polacki is now going to be the new co-host of Not Another Whiskey podcast. And we're not joking here. He is actually going to take over from Daz. I'm just going to mute Daz's microphone quickly here so we can't hear him.
I was just going to say something really nice. Do you know, when you phoned me, Mitch, and we're like, I think I've got a replacement. And I was like, oh, right, okay. And he was like, guess who it was? And I blasted off all these names and I was wrong, 3-4 people, because it just didn't cross my mind. I just assumed it would be someone here in Scotland. And as soon as he said, look, Nicholas Blackie fancies doing it, I was like, yes. I'm so into that, man, because I'll listen to you. I wouldn't have listened to all the other names I rattled off. I won't tell you who they are, obviously.
I was going to say, and that's the thing, Daz. The thing is about it is you were rattling off the names of Mitch's list. I was number 8 on that list.
Mate, you didn't even feature. That's what he said. Oh. It's going to be fun, man. It's going to be fun.
I'm genuinely buzzing to keep following you boys and hearing what's going on. And look, I won't be far away. So if I can dive in for a wee cameo, or if you're really struggling for guests, I can fill in at some point.
I was going to say that under no circumstance will this be the last time you're ever on the show. Like, this is, and I will say this, like, the show I have listened to has been a blast. Like, you have been hysterically funny, but really insightful about everything that you talk about. And the banter between the two of you guys is brilliant. So it is a very big pair of hairy shoes that I need to fill. So I'm looking forward to taking it over. But it is, I tip my hat to you. You've done a phenomenal job. So hopefully people will still continue to listen and enjoy your banter.
Yeah. Big news indeed.
Yeah. I mean, well, I was going to say, kind of behind the scenes, Nick and I have been working on what we're going to be doing this year for the show. And it's some pretty exciting stuff. I mean, guys, what you can look forward to is better banter, more interesting guests, less yellow clothes, and definitely better Instagram content, because Daz isn't going to be looking after that anymore.
Right at it. Actually, just forget to do it. It's just as simple as that.
No, it's going to be a great year, though. It's this is kind of weird for me because it's like saying goodbye to you, Daz, which I'm gutted about, but also welcoming Nicholas into the show as the new co-host. And behind the scenes, like I say, Nick and I have been chatting about what we're going to do, and we've got some amazing ideas for new episodes. Nick, you're going to come over to Scotland a few times. We're going to get some Not Another Whiskey podcast lives going as well, right?
Correct. Can't wait. Yeah. So I mean, that actually, the last live show that you guys did, I thought was one of the best shows I've listened to. It was so much fun, feels so engaging, and that's one of the things that we want to make sure that we continue to do. And the guests that you've had to date have been exceptional. So we do have, like you said, Mitch, we do have a great lineup ahead for this year. But hopefully they'll be able to match and keep up the consistency of what you guys have done to date, because it's great value that you bring to the great value of conversation that you're bringing to the chat around Scotch whisky. And I hopefully will be able to continue that mantle.
Well, Nicholas, you don't have to suck up to him anymore. You've already got a job, so
Cool. Daz, fuck off.
That's better. That's more like it.
There you go. Actually, I think the last time I actually saw Daz in person, we were in Spain together, Daz.
Yes, that's
It
right.
was. That was, right?
Yeah.
Just a romantic weekend away, you and me.
Casual week in Jerez, drinking a few sherries.
It was, drinking a few sherries, bit of karaoke.
Yeah, there was El Parate. Yeah, there was. It's so good. We've had a few people on who have been down to Jerez on various different trips, and it always goes back to karaoke. It's so good. It's so good.
Well, listen, guys, we're going to leave it there. Not really anything else to say. It's a lot of information for everyone to digest, and I'm sure there's a few tears now listening to this because you're leaving, Daz. So, what I want to do, mate, you're going to close out the show. It's your last episode, so do it.
Oh, well, that's amazing. Well, thank you so much for listening. Thanks to all the guests that have joined us for the episodes, and thank you to Mr. Nicholas Palaki for willingly picking up the baton and dealing with Mitch for the next year or two. Congratulations on that, mate. You've won a Mitch Beshard, and most importantly, genuinely, Mitch, a massive thanks for. We wouldn't have done this together, had you not sort of chatted about it and we hadn't got together and sort of plotted all these silly wee ideas that we had. And yeah, it's been a pleasure, mate. Thanks for all the editing. Thanks for carrying my bags. Thanks for giving me whiskey. And obviously, thanks for making it such a blast. It's been a really, really good excuse for you and I just to catch up. And I'm sure we'll find many more excuses to do it. And actually, see if you do organise a live, give me a heads up, man, because I definitely want to be there. I'll be late, but I'll be there for sure.
For sure. All right, Daz. Well, thank you, man. Thank you. It's been a pleasure. It's been a blast doing this with you.
Cheers, legends.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys.